Good afternoon and welcome to all of you. Thank you for joining us in this panel. My name is Maryam Emami. Today, myself and my co-panelists are going to have a discussion about the applications and good practices of AI in different domains. Each of us are coming from a different background, and we will discuss the intersection of AI with media, with robotics, and with manufacturing, and how AI is transforming the future of these fields. I just need to mention that this panel has been organized by Women in AI and Robotics, which is a global nonprofit association headquartered in Germany with branches in Canada. And they are dedicated to advancing women in the field of AI materia, AI, artificial intelligence, and robotics. And before we dive in the discussion, let's have a brief introduction. Afsoon, let's start with you. Afsoon is a team leader and a data scientist in CBC. Can you please tell us more about yourself and your background?
Sure, thank you. As Maryam said, I work at CBC, which is our national broadcasting company, and my teams at CBC focuses on development of kind of all sorts of intelligence for our content and products. More specifically, I work with two different teams. One really focuses on developing recommender systems for news content, podcasts, videos, and the other one tries to understand our audience better and develop insights for our content producers to make better decisions using a real-time dashboard. So my day-to-day job is really working with a lot of smart people, such as yourselves all here, and they are the one putting together our platform and building great products for CBC.
Thank you, Afsoon. And we also have Yue. Yue is an assistant professor in the field of robotics in University of Waterloo. Yue, would you please tell us more about yourself?
Yeah, so thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. And my name is Yue Hu, and I am an assistant professor at the University of Waterloo. If you're familiar with the region, you may know about our university, which is quite strong in engineering fields. So my department is mechanical mechatronics, and I specialize in robotics research. So I'm a research-oriented faculty. I have worked in several countries before landing here in Canada. Our kind of research involves both the machine learning, so artificial intelligence side, as well as robotics. And we mainly use AIs to advance more into robotics, to implement better robotics applications. This from two different aspects. I would say one from the control side of the robot, so how can we make the robots move better? How can we make them behave in a more intelligent way, and from the other side, also the more reasoning side of things. How can we make robots understand the surrounding environment and also the different situations? And this is maybe not really recent, but in robotics, I would say it's quite recent in the past couple of decades, with raising applications in machine learning, and especially thanks to the advancements of machine learning fields. We are now having also more applications in robotics using machine learning methodologies. Thank you.
Thank you, Yue. And myself, I already mentioned my name, Maryam Emami. I am the CEO of AI Materia, which is a materials informatics company when we are ushering in the next generation of sustainable and high-performing materials. So we are creating standards, protocols, and AI engine for materials development applications, and we are accelerating the whole process in order to speed up, making the materials to the market. And I also work as an advisor and consultant for digital transformation and innovation with materials and manufacturing companies. So I start off the conversation with the first question, and each of us is going to discuss this question based on our background and perspective. So Yue, I'll start the first question with you. What role does AI play in your industry, and what has been the impact in the field of robotics? And that would be great if you can share, a couple of use cases.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So, as I also mentioned earlier, machine learning is not exactly new in the field of robotics, but it is growing faster in the recent couple of decades. I would say maybe in the past few years, it has grown very fast, and we can see applications growing ever. And in fact, one of the phenomena that is happening is that the robotics conference is one of the main keywords now is deep learning or machine learning. So we can see these growing trends, and this is because it can really help us developing new applications, exploring new areas, especially if we think about wanting to push robots into a real-world environment. Then it's really important for robots to have more knowledge and how to acquire this kind of knowledge is usually using machine learning. So this comes again into play into two different aspects. One is how we can make robots move. Usually we would approach it from what we can say a more classical control methodology. So that would be just a lot of math behind our control systems. So classical control for making robots move. But recently, people started discovering methodologies using machine learning, how we can improve on top of our original control methodology using machine learning as well. And the other aspect is to give robots reasoning. So if we want to use robots in several applications, say that could be your domestic application or your industrial application. If you want robots to be more autonomous, they have to be reasoning in their environment and take decisions. These kind of decisions can be then taken using machine learning approaches, where then we would feed in data to the robots with the use cases that we are targeting, and then the robot would behave accordingly. So those are some examples, I think, of how machine learning is really now playing an important role in robotics as well. And we can apply this on various types of robots, ranging from your mobile robots on wheels, your legged robots, your humanoid robots, but also in your industrial robot arms in your assembly line, for example, to make things better suited for the purpose and their original task. Yeah, thank you.
Perfect. And Afsoon, let's hear from you how AI is transforming the industry of media.
Thank you. I love how seamless it is for Yue to talk about AI in robotics, because it's still a science field. I have been with CBC for 4 years, and this question that you're asking, Maryam, has been a focus for our whole teams and department and organization to answer, because media industry is such a traditional, like especially the broadcasting side, such a traditional industry, and we are only now catching up to understand the power of AI, and there are so many different tools and solutions we can use. It's just a matter of finding the lowest hanging fruits and being able to create value. So to name a couple of them, AI can be used for, first of all, content generation or creation, which helps, for example, journalists in investigations. If you can use NLP to tag, or if you can kind of search easier the videos and audios that journalists can record for a long period of time, and just makes an investigation easier to help them with the creation of content, and also automation of some of those processes that they have to do repetitively. aside from the content creation, the other side that I'm currently mostly focusing on is distribution and discovery of content, which, as I mentioned, my teams are working, for example, on the recommender system, which is a way for our audiences to discover what is out there and find the relevant content they're looking for and the ones that we have created. And there are a lot more, like on the distribution side, there are all these aggregators of the news that we'll see from big tech companies that works with multiple content creators and bring everything together for a seamless access for all of our audiences.
Thank you very much, Afsoon. And I can talk about manufacturing. So the same goes to manufacturing, Afsoon, very traditional system, and AI has been the driving force for Industry 4.0, which is the fourth industrial revolution. So that's the process of digitalization of manufacturing, of production, and any related industries. So, and the hope is to optimize the operation, the efficiency, to lower the cost, to improve the quality, and reduce downtime. In terms of material, which is the focus of my work, the material design space is very complicated, and in each project we are hoping to go from raw ingredients and a set of treatment processes to some properties in our product. And there are infinite possibilities and scenarios in terms of the combinations and ratios and processing conditions that defines the final product. And the current methods for materials development are unsustainable, including experimentation and computation, and they are very resource intensive and time consuming, and sometimes it takes a decade and tens to hundreds of millions of dollars for a material to reach the market. And AI can accelerate this process significantly. AI creates the ability to use the complexity in the material design as a competitive advantage in order to guide the material research and accelerate the whole process. So one use case that I can mention that we did a while ago was developing a titanium alloy for 3D printing a heat exchanger. So titanium alloy in general, they have great mechanical properties, but they are low in thermal conductivity, and we wanted to have a new variant of this alloy to be a viable candidate for printing that heat exchanger. So we were able to mine a small but accurate data set of historical data for titanium alloys, and by using the AI models, we were able to build a model in order to do inverse prediction for the composition. And the timing for these kind of projects is 2 years and more, and we could do the whole project in about 6 months. So we talked about AI applications, and its central role in shaping the future of our fields, and in media, in robotics, in manufacturing. But this transition and adaptation hasn't been easy. So I would like to hear from you what has been the challenges that you have seen. Afsoon, I can start with you.
Thank you. Yes, it definitely hasn't been easy. With some of the frameworks not being, because ML in general, it's a new field, especially for my industry, which is media right now. One of the biggest challenges for me has been developing that common language between different stakeholders and different peoples and teams that work to develop these products, because we have a digital products and strategy department, but our stakeholders are people who are producing content, and they're developing, they're journalists, they're content creators, they're editors, to determine what shows up on those digital products. So developing the language, common language between them has been, I would say, the biggest challenges. And the way we've been trying to address that is by bringing everybody really at the earliest stage when we are doing product development and having our teams really multifunctional. So what I mean by multifunctional is that we do have our teams as a combination of data scientists, data engineers, ML developers, product designers, product management, and bringing technology, product, and design together to create the value for our content providers and content producers has been really, really important. Also, on a different, like an ethical perspective, because I thought that that's also another aspect that is still an open question for everybody. We have made great progress, but we really have been focusing on, as a national broadcaster, what are our values, defining that, and making sure our teams are inclusive and bringing everybody's perspective into the conversation from start. Especially so far, some of the examples of this is, for example, for how we are training our algorithms and what type of algorithms are we using in case of the news, not to create polarization, political polarization or bubbles. We try to not use the content of our news as much and use session-based algorithms instead. Whereas for podcasts and videos, it's entertainment, it's a little bit different, less sensitivity. So we could be a bit more flexible and experimentation and all with those type of algorithms. So we are very considerate of what type of tools we are using. In addition, the type of trainings we do and what type of metrics we consider, we are trying to train our algorithms on our own content a bit. So that's kind of a ongoing research that is happening in our teams. I know a lot of bigger companies have their own corpus that they're trained their language models on it. So to remove some of those bias, we are trying to develop that internally for CBC and making sure that we identify the bias with human interventions and making our ML solutions very inclusive for all Canadians. That's one of the examples and challenges. Did you want to share your side?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, you know, adapting this to this new world of manufacturing has been very challenging for the industry. And one of the most significant challenges that I see for manufacturing is the culture. So there is still, I would say, kind of resistance of adopting digital transformation. And it's not uncommon to hear about the companies achieving impressive results in terms of pilot programs for digital transformation in one side and not being able to replicate the same results in other locations. So manufacturers need to build trust in data, in AI, in digital technologies, and this not only by educating the workforce about the capabilities and values, but also about the risks and limitations. And they need to have a true vision of an effective collaboration between human and machines. And there are other challenges in manufacturing. It's mostly on the lack of some fundamentals. So there is a lack of a digital strategy, so the companies do not know where and how get the business value of the digital transformation. And sometimes there are the lack of sub-capability, including technical or managerial capabilities, so which is needed in order to understand and execute the changes. And also, sometimes it's just basic, just the lack of robust data and IT infrastructure, which is a bottleneck for any kind of a small pilot programs. And there are some fundamentals that should be followed for the manufacturing in order to get a tangible results and sustain those results. And now, Yue, yeah, I would like to hear from you. What has been the challenge in your field?
Yeah, so it's very interesting to hear, the challenges in actual applied field in more in media and also in manufacturing lines, because I think being in research, research is all about discovery and exploring new horizons. So surely we have less of a challenge in people accepting the use of machine learning methodologies in our community. People are actually keen in trying to use machine learning methodologies. And of course, there's entire communities working on the development of AI and machine learning. In the context of robotics, though, we do still have a few challenges that we are facing. Well, we have not just a few, I would say still a lot of challenges to face. I think when it comes to robotics, many people tend to associate automatically robots with AI, which is actually not directly associated, at least not for research. In my opinion, we have the robots, which are the actual physical machine. So we see it as just the machine, as maybe you see your dishwasher kind of thing. And then we can make it intelligent, but it can also not be as intelligent. So if you think of a humanoid robot, for example, these humanoid robots, some people tend to associate the embodiment alone of the robot has to be kind of intelligent because we associate ourselves to this kind of machine. But it's not necessarily the case. It's actually very difficult to develop intelligence for this kind of machine. Even if, and nowadays I would say machine learning has not reached the point yet where we can actually say that we can make these robots really intelligent. One of the main issues here is, for example, the societal and ethical issues of introducing these robots, of how to make them intelligent and ethically behaving. You can just imagine, for example, if you want to have a service robot in the maybe near or far future, we want a service robot at home, similar to maybe nowadays you may have a Roomba for cleaning floors. You can imagine that in the near future you can have something more complex that is able to respond to your command and bring you objects. But what if me, as an adult person, I ask, for example, for a bottle of whiskey to my robot, I say, I'm really in the mood of having a glass of whiskey. And the robot, we would expect it just to execute our commands. But what happens if, what should happen if I have, let's say, a 4-year-old daughter, and she asks the same thing to the robot? We need the robot to discriminate things like this. Should the robot still be bringing it to the child? Should not be bringing? How can they discriminate the different societal situation? So this, we are hoping in using machine learning methodologies to overcome these kind of issues. The other challenge that we do face, I think, is that we would like to use more machine learning also in generating better control algorithms for robots so that their movements are smoother, better, or more efficient. But we do face a little bit of a bottleneck in data. So I think this is something everyone who works in machine learning can relate to, is that we are lacking data. So we don't have good data on top which we can train our control algorithms. So we yet to have figured out what good data really means for robotics research. How can we then use this good data to train our robots to achieve the task that we want to actually achieve? So these, I think, are two examples of challenges that we are trying to overcome. Yeah,
it's interesting you mentioned because we are at the industries that the adoption is very low, so we don't get to spend a lot of time thinking about the actual machine learning challenges. But you mentioned a very good point about discrimination between, or distinction between your adult human interaction with your robots versus for example, a kid. And that is a very important challenge for us as well in the media or entertainment industry, that our younger generations and youth are very much exposed to so many different platforms and content, and figuring out how we can design a very good digital experience for our younger adults or kids to benefit from all the content that is being provided. So those are really rudimentary questions that we are struggling with, and the collaboration with the university as research would be a really good avenue to address some of those basic scientific questions on machine learning as well.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much, ladies. So I think we all agree that AI is shaping how we view our world and make decisions. And I think it's extremely important at this point to acknowledge and bring diversity to shaping these views. So as a professional and as a woman in your field, what do you think about the role of women in shaping those views, and what could be your advice for the women who would like to get involved? Afsoon, we can go with you.
I think it's a very good question for every industry and for everybody who's building their career. I would say we definitely struggled. I personally struggled. I've been hiring for many, many years now. I wouldn't tell you how many, but it is really difficult to hire women. And it's not just because we don't have enough of them, because we do have enough of them. A lot of very smart people I know of. But it has been a challenge for different companies to make things easier and more inclusive. For my teams, I can tell that I see this shift in culture of how we're approaching solving a problem when we don't have diversity in the room, and I mean in every sense, diversity of thoughts, background, gender, in every sense. And for machine learning solutions, it's very important to have all those people in the room, because there are all so many niche use cases that we need to consider and address and make sure that our algorithms are not discriminating against. So I definitely think having all sorts of diversity in our teams are very, very important, especially women, because we make half of the population of the world, so we should be half of the people in the room for sure when the decisions are being made and the products are being developed. And the way I think about solving it is that we like one of the things is these type of non-profit organizations that bring women together, and we should be able to ask questions, ask for support, get help. Whether you're a guy or a girl, you have to be an ally and make sure that you speak for the underrepresented people. And for me as a hiring manager, what I have been doing to address some of these issues is that look at the pipeline of our hiring and like really investigate our processes and see where are the places that we can make improvement. What type of people are we bringing to our panels for interview? What type of questions we are asking those people? What do we describe in our job description as the mandatory qualifications, or are those actually important to have? And also indicate what we provide and what we are looking for, our values and learnings and what we can provide to support a certain group of people in our teams. And throughout years, I really think we have made a difference. Like when I joined, our team was only consist of male developers, and there is nothing necessarily bad about that, but I do see the problems being shifted when we have more female developers in the room, and now I have a lot more of those in my teams, and I really appreciate their perspective. I make sure I bring them to the panel interviews so that they can so the people who are coming and seeing us, they understand and they see themselves in the people who are building those products. And also being out there and talking to people and encourage them to apply. Even if it's a growth opportunity, you should go for it, because everybody else does. If you don't advocate for yourself, nobody else will. You should believe in yourself.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Afsoon. And let's hear from you, Yue.
Yeah, I think diversity is really important. Also in in robotics, I think robotics is also. It depends a bit, I think, on the side of robotics you're looking at. I come from the control side of robotics, that is, and I'm in mechanical and mechatronics department, so you can only imagine that this is the traditionally man-dominated faculties. In my faculty, we have only 15% of female students. I am one of the less than 10 over 70 faculties who are female faculties. But we do see an increasing interest from female students towards robotics, especially thanks to a diverse type of topics, such as the social aspects of robotics that I have mentioned earlier. And I think this can show that robotics is not only for men. And for example, we have other types of projects that are really targeting the diversity. We have recently been funded for a project to push forward robotics with indigenous communities here in Canada. And we are now trying to look for people, also including a diverse students who can work on this type of project to push forward also this kind of diverse research. So I think, people should not be stereotyping this kind of fields. There's always room for everyone to step into also robotics research, machine learning research, and their applications as well. So my hope is that, with a diversification of our community, we can also achieve better research and also better applications.
Great. I can talk about manufacturing. So in manufacturing, women are underrepresented significantly. There is a huge gender gap in the industry. And there has been some periods with some growth and some decline in terms of the number of women holding manufacturing jobs. But actually the dynamic has been unchanged for the last, I would say, 50 years. And for the same reasons, male-centric workplaces and limited opportunities for advancements. And in general, there is a negative perceptions of engineering and manufacturing. But by adopting AI and automation, manufacturing is undergoing a huge transformation, and this transformation is opening opportunities to bring diversity into industry. So many manufacturing jobs, even on the production floor, are being shifted from physical jobs, and the job roles and responsibilities are being rewritten, and there's a critical need for the knowledge-based workers. So this is an exciting time for women in manufacturing. We need to take advantage of this. We need to have more women in the field. We need their voices. We need their opinions and their viewpoints in order to, define the important subjects and problems in the field of manufacturing. So our session is almost close to the end, and we have a few minutes for questions from the audience. If there is anyone, we will be happy to answer them.
Hi, if anyone has questions, feel free to come up here to ask the questions.
While we do that, I was just listening to you, Maryam. Something you mentioned about AI actually makes it more diverse, our pool of candidates more diverse, which is a very interesting thing to think about, because one of the challenges that we face in media is that there is this perception that AI is taking some jobs away, and I don't want to create that impression. It just brings more diversity, as you said, which is great, and it just removes that physical or the part of repetitive work that most other people have to do, automate it and use the AI for it, which is just something that it was at the back of my mind and I wanted to share.
That's great.
Great. I guess if anyone wants to ask a question, feel free to come up. In the meantime, I do have a question because like you three all come from very different industries, so I'm just curious for the ML applications you work with. What's the time that's needed before, let's say, the ML you've trained becomes more outdated, right? Because some industries, they move at different paces. You need the data to be updated much faster, right? But then for some other industries, the pace you need to retrain the models are different. So I'm just curious.
I just didn't hear completely. I just want to make sure, did you say the time that the product goes to market, or did you ask about the cycle of the data?
It's more about the cycle of the data, yeah. Like the time that the data needs to be updated for the models, and maybe the model needs to be retrained.
I can tell you about our experience specifically for a recommender system, and also because we do have another group that works on audience analytics. We so far have been okay with the 24 hours. So every day we go through the data and train our algorithms on the past day of the data, and so that it can recommend fresh results.
I think I can go for robotics. So for robotics, heavily depends on the change in hardware. So if the hardware changes too fast, then we have to develop new data. So it is heavily dependent on the pace of hardware development as well, because we have this physical embodiment of AI on a physical machine. If you change the hardware, then parameters in your machine learning algorithms needs to be adapted accordingly, because you can't just dump data that you learn from a completely different machine on the one that you have at the moment. So while we can definitely rely on longer times for data with respect to media applications, if you plan on updating your hardware system every month, then maybe you will need a shorter cycle. But otherwise, just continuous collection of data on your physical robot is needed. Yeah.
And to just give it, for me on media, to tell you how much data we have. So we produce probably around 400 to 500 pieces of content every day. And then we have thousands and thousands of users that go to our website and apps daily. So it's a lot of data and a lot of cleaning. And we do have automated checks, so if there is a failure in any of our data collection, then I think we also do like a weekly check to make sure everything is in the process.
Yeah, just very quickly about manufacturing. So our story is very, very much different from you. So one of the biggest challenges for us for any AI project is access to data. So we do not definitely, big data doesn't apply to us. So they are very unstructured, very siloed, and very expensive to obtain actually. So one of the biggest part of every project that we do is data mining. So it's either from any clients or customers who we are working with, or it's mining through literature, the public and private databases and everything. And it's not only that data, we have to make sure those are accurate data. You see, because otherwise, if you are working on a very small data set, and if it's not accurate, definitely the outcome cannot be trusted. Yeah.
Thanks for your talk. I'm from mechanical engineering, and my supervisor is also a very strong and smart female researcher. and he has a lot of contribution in the field of AI and manufacturing. The question I want to ask is, how do we make manufacturing line workers feel safer and more comfortable with digitalization? More and more machine learning tools, and they have to learn to adapt.
Yeah, that's actually something that has been our challenge as a company too. So as we talked about this, manufacturing is a very traditional system, and there are lots of resistance towards using any kind of right now digital technologies. So everybody is interested in AI. Everybody agrees that machine learning and data helps. But when it comes to implementation, that's where we see the company is not ready. So what we call it is AI readiness. So they are not ready. They are not. They do not even have the basics. So what we learned is just inviting them to such events like this, or just going them and educate the manufacturers about the values, as I said, values and also the limitations. So how we can help them to give them a better picture of what AI can provide. We cannot do magic. So when I'm talking to companies, sometimes they say, okay, I can just maybe touch it and then it's going to be solved. This is not the situation. So they need to understand how AI works and how we can help them, but it takes time. It's not only for AI and machine learning, it's for any new technology. This has been the story with manufacturing, and the same robotics, media, and everywhere.
I was going to add, that's the same challenge for us as well. The people who we serve are also not from technical background or digital. So digital transformation has been a difficult process for a lot of people. And we have to acknowledge that change is slow. So you just have to give a bit more time for them. And as well as what Maryam was saying, educating is very important, but acknowledge the fact that they need to see results, small results that they can relate to. And also, one other challenge that I was facing is that they don't have to have an impression that we're taking those jobs away. AI is complementing that work. So the more we can convey that message, the change becomes easier, I believe.
Yeah, I do feel a lot of drags in my project when I'm trying to deploy machine learning tools in the manufacturing line. And I think it's hard to maybe a human in the loop. Like we try to create more super workers and transform them to supervisors instead of just doing automation and wipe them away. Yeah, some ethical issues we need to take care of.
Yeah, I think that comes more from research people point of view. Like, it's difficult to make people in the industry accepting new research results into application fields. I think that's a general struggle that is happening with new technologies developments in general. And so I share the struggle.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So unfortunately, we are at time, and thank you so much. We learned a lot from these speakers, and yeah, thank you.